9 months in, I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? And also, my personal life's imploded. I don't know if I should say this on a podcast, but within the space of a year, I lost my family, my house, and my business. A co-working space on the moon, and it's good that you got that, Sam. It's brilliant. But the point of that is that there's no limits to what we can achieve. The limit is what we set it to be. So why not be the first co-working space on the moon? We talk about Freedom Works as a bus, and I want the bus to get as far as it can with as many people on the bus. Work is there and home is there, which is where I was at. It's like actually work has an impact on that. You're going to make the most of those summers on this planet. You need to enjoy what you're doing and look back on it and go, actually, at least I had a go.
Welcome to the County Business Talks podcast, powered by Picture Book Films. Here, we're going to be talking to entrepreneurs and business owners from across Sussex, delving into the mindsets of what makes them really tick. Okay, welcome to another episode of the County Business Talks podcast. So my guest on the podcast this week is a digital professional with a track record in starting up and growing businesses. Over the past 20 years, he has helped companies grow in turnover from 400,000 to 3 million a year. In 2002, he founded and grew his business, Silent Manager, that he started in the back of his bedroom and ran for over 12 years to become a global provider with 2 offices in Brighton and 1 in Sydney, Australia. Then in 2016, after recognising the growing need outside major cities for decent, innovative and creative workspaces, he founded Freedom Works, a collaborative, flexible co-working space. Within less than 6 years, they have grown to 8 sites. Oh, actually, 9 now, as we announced. I saw on LinkedIn this morning before I come in the southeast, with plans to continue growth this year. And he and the team are on a mission to become the first co-working space on the moon. I read that somewhere as well.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Today, we're going to find out a bit more about his journey, delve deeper into the mindset of this successful entrepreneur. I'm delighted to welcome Jon Trigg to the podcast. How are you, mate?
Well, thanks, Sam. It sounds like you're describing somebody completely different there.
Oh, mate, listen, awesome to have you on. It's been great, obviously, getting to know you a little bit over the last few months and working together with our partnership. So,
yeah.
And was absolutely buzzing about you coming on and sharing your journey. So,
yeah.
Mate, look, we're going to delve straight in. Just start telling our listeners about your journey over the last sort of 20 years or so.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. So sort of listening to that, you sort of, whether it's you sort of thinking, is that me or is that somebody else? But I guess the easiest way I sort of say is that I'm quite unemployable.
Yeah.
So I've had to sort of set up or run my own businesses. So I sort of left. I've run 3 businesses. One I failed quite early on. Left university, set up a business selling mobile phones, and within 6 months, we were selling Polish beer to all the bars on Brighton seafront. So we diversified. This is at the same time that Charles Dunstan set up Carphone Warehouse. So I think I took the wrong route those years ago.
Big challenge, yeah.
Anyway, I learned a massive amount out of that. That lasted for about 18 months, and then I went to go and work for a PR company up in London, and it was a commission-only job, and I didn't really have enough money to pay for my train fare, so I used to bunk on the train on the way up to London. But anyway, cut a long story short, that job went really, really well, and that's probably where I found myself and what I was quite good at doing. And it was I sort of took that company was the one that you sort of cited. We did a sort of a turnover of about £400,000 a year to 3 million, and I was sort of headed up the sales of that business. And then having done that for 3 years, and more than 3 years, did that in London for a number of years. Decided that I didn't want to commute anymore. I was in a just been married, wanted to have children. Yeah. And decided to follow a passion of mine, which was running sort of fantasy football games and playing fantasy football games, and set up Silent Manager back in 2002. Wow. Ran that for 12 years, then merged, which we'll talk a bit more about, I guess. Sure. and fell out of love with that, which again we'll sort of talk a bit more about. And 2016, this brings us up to, and I was sort of sitting there, a bit of cash in bank, having sort of exited, thinking, what do I do next? I'd had a slight sort of life-changing experience in the year previously to that. And I know I'm passionate about, where I live. I know I'm passionate about business. And I knew I had enough sort of knowledge in my brain from, starting up a mobile phone selling company, selling beer, to growing Silent Manager internationally, to give it another go. And I'm at a stage of my life where I thought, right, one more roll of the dice. But, the thing that was sort of kept coming back to me was just the challenge of setting up a business and how hard that was, and it was so I sort of had worked in sort of co-working spaces in Sydney and used workspaces in sort of London and Singapore, and thought, why aren't there these places down here? And cracked on and set up sort of Freedom Works, and here we are, sort of 5.5 years down the line.
Wow.
So that was it. 20 years.
So you again, just want to touch on, because you obviously done a business studies degree. That was right at university. So was like, from a young age, was there always that? Did you have a mindset from a young age? Like, I'm gonna run my own business when I'm older. I'm gonna do a degree and then I'm gonna go and run my own business.
No, to be brutally honest, even at probably even at 40, I didn't know what I wanted to do. But I think when I had a sort of a very transient childhood. I moved. I born in South Africa, lived in Botswana, moved back to Yorkshire with my mum, living with with her mother. We moved to South Wales, Stoke, then down to Brighton, and I think a lot of your childhood sort of shapes who you are. So you became, by the time I came to Brighton, I was 11 years old. I'd been to 8 different schools. So you sort of toughen up pretty, quick.
Sure.
And my mum and my dad left when, I was sort of in early teens. But my mum was a grafter, she was always self-employed. So, that's what I guess I grew up in. We lived in a sort of DSS hotel. We then, managed to move into a house, and she lost her house, got repossessioned because of a business didn't go well. So I had that sort of environment that I grew up and watched, and not consciously, but I think that played a part of having the confidence and I guess is it confidence and risk taking sort of cavalier attitude that you need to have.
If you've been around that, I'm always intrigued to find this out, because there's some people you speak to who've come on and gone, never dreamt of running a business. I just sort of found out I was good at a role and then went in and done that. And then there's other people like yourself who just have been exposed to parents who run their own businesses and looked at that path, and despite, because like you say, it can be tough running a business, as we know, and especially seeing some sort of failures and risks that they're prepared to take, you sort of go, well, you know what, I can do that.
Yeah, I don't know if you aspire to do that, but it normalises it. So your mother working 15-hour days. The fact that she lost her house to pay her debts because that's what she wanted to do when her business folded.
Yeah, sure.
It didn't seem an unnormal thing to sort of do, and I went and did a degree, and honestly, I did a degree because I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was lucky enough, and I'm of an age that the government paid you to do the degree. They gave you $3,000 grant money to turn up, so I just thought, right, this is cool. This is better than going to work. I was always interested in business. I did an economics A level. I did a sociology A level, which is probably the thing I was most interested in. And I did a geography A level, so not really that sort of. But I just, when I was, 10, I used to knock on doors, doing Bob a Job Week, even though I wasn't a scout, to work to earn money. I was always working.
Prepared to graft.
Always grafting. And I think it was also I went to Cardinal Newman School in Hove, and in the 80s it was a rum school at the time, and and most lads were entrepreneurial, and you just you earn your money however you sort of earned it. So the business studies degree was good because it gave me some sort of understanding of I guess how to work spreadsheets, but if I'm brutally honest, I've never used a degree for anything. It helped me, probably I was too immature to work at the age of 18, so it kept me off the streets and out of trouble for 4 years. There's probably some sort of academic skill set I got a little bit out of that, but it's and then literally off the back of that, I remember trying to go and get a job, and I remember I went to a very famous recruitment recruitment agency, got down to the final interview, and I was told that I couldn't get the job because my accent wasn't posh enough.
Really?
Yeah. So that was a real
I'd have struggled with that as well. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I didn't expect that.
Wow.
And I just couldn't get a job because that same old sort of, you haven't got any experience, and I'm like, how can I get an experience if you don't give me a job?
Yeah, sure.
So that's when I set up it was CTS, Complete Technology Solutions, and they literally, Orange had just launched, and we were selling phones, and but that was just.
How long did you run that for?
About 18 months.
Oh,
yeah,
really? Wow.
but that was I needed to earn money. I mean, I couldn't get a job, and I could have worked on a building site, but I've done all that. But
sure.
I wanted to get myself some sort of something which I thought, and obviously it was. This is the sort of the day of sort of mobile phones. The
big brick ones.
Yeah, the big brick ones.
Not like what we've got now. Where
I'm trying to
live
think.
our lives on them.
What's the Michael Douglas movie, Wall Street?
That
was on, and they're all out, and I'm like, that's a piece of me. I'm going to get the
yuppies.
Yeah.
Mate, I was all over that.
Yeah.
I remember Del Boy dressing up in his wide awake suit and his mobile phone on.
Yeah, we're on to a winner here. Treat. Yeah.
Brilliant. That's great. So then, cause that's interesting. Like you say, being surrounded, especially because again, on the education side of it, I guess as an entrepreneur and starting your own business, certain things you can learn from, I guess, from academic education, but fundamentally running it, you just get out there, and that's where you learn about really running a business. Isn't it?
I mean, I'm probably not the best person, but my eldest is coming up. He's doing his A-levels at the moment, and I'm not pushing university. And unless you're going to do something, become a rocket scientist, medicine. I just think there's stuff that's intuitive, and there's stuff that you learn through sort of experience. And business is super simple. You've got to make more money than you spend, and the amount of people that don't get that surprise me. And even very intelligent people that don't get that surprise me. So
that's really, because I'm the same education wise. Like my kids, unless like my wife, she wanted to be a solicitor since she was 11. So to become a solicitor, you got to go get your degree. Perfect. The kids come to me and say that I want to do that. Doctor, some professionals that you need a degree. Of course, I support that. Whatever you want to do. If they come just because I'm not sure what I want to do, then go travel the world, go and get some experience somewhere, go and do anything, but not getting 40 grand's worth of debt in a degree that potentially you're going to come out of and not actually go into any role anyway. So I'm exactly my mindset is exactly the same. I just think like you said, but my wife's was the last year I think when they got the grant still. So and then after that it cost you fortune.
And you know what, Sam, I don't reckon I would have done it if I'd have had to pay. And I would have, but no. I mean, my eldest Ben, he's 17. And we've talked about it. He's not. He doesn't. He will be successful, but he needs to find himself, and it's not going to be through the academic route. And he's going to go travelling for a year, and that's what he's going to. He'll find what he likes. Yeah,
because you find out about. I never did a huge amount of travelling. I must admit, it was something I wanted to. And I look back and wish I had maybe for in my early 20s. Hindsight, you look back, but I just think like. How much you find out about yourself by doing that. People I don't know do it just because we don't I'm similar to you. Like I was going to be a footballer when I was younger. If I didn't, as soon as I weren't going to become a footballer, I was like, I haven't actually got a clue.
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
do. So
yeah.
I've been searching for that over the last 20 odd 30 years, still searching. But yeah,
Yeah.
you know, we're getting there. But cool. So, well, I want to move on then and talk about obviously running Silent Manager for sort of 12 years. Tell me a little bit about that for them 12 years, and then I'm really keen to talk about. I know we spoke a little bit offline, but talk about the merger with sort of Chroma Group and that sort of 2-year period.
Yeah.
And the exit.
Yeah, so Silent Manager came about because there was myself and 2 other friends that I'd gone to school with, and I was, as I mentioned, I was working up in London, and I was earning. I mean, a brilliant salary, you know, the best salary I've ever had, you know, and I was sort of, you know, mid to late 20s. You know, coining it in, you know, high flying, be given a directorship in the company, shareholding the company, but it involved me, you know, sitting on a train for 4 hours of a day, spending more time sitting opposite a stranger I'd never spoke to, because you all sit in the same seats when you commute. So you sort of like, you're sitting there and you're like, I don't even know your name, but I've been sitting opposite you for 7 years. And then I'm like, you know, hang on a minute, I'm spending more time with you than my wife. That's not right. So, and I set it up with a couple of friends, and you know, there's always that you hear that adage of never work with friends and family, and you know, that presented a challenge because it was a back of the bedroom sort of business. We ran a hobby website, a fantasy football website called freefantasyfootball.tv, and it had about 40-odd thousand people that played it, and there was no interest whatsoever in making any money out of it. It was just a sort of a hobby thing. This is sort of like late 2001, and we got contacted by a guy from a guy called Brian Corcoran, who was the marketing manager of an unheard of betting company from Ireland called Paddy Power. And Brian Corcoran actually went on to become the CEO of Flutter, who's like the main PLC that owned Paddy Power. They own gazillion. I mean, they're like a 3 billion. So anyway, Brian's trajectory went slightly upwards. But anyway, he said, "I'm playing this game. Can you run a game like this for me on my Irish bookmaker website?" And it was like, ding, that's a great business idea. So we did that, and you know, ultimately we sold what we were selling were white label fantasy sport games to businesses to have as their website. But the game was a means to an end. What we were doing was attracting an audience onto a company website. This is 2002, so it's right at the start of the whole sort of .com digital.
Sure.
We're attracting customer base on your website. Share of mind. They're on your website 2 or 3 times a day or a week, dependent on the nature of the game. And you can sell them your sort of services. So, and that business, again, I learned a lot doing that business. I learned, you know, first of all, we didn't do a shareholders agreement. We were 3 mates. We just went, you know, divvied it up 3 ways, and then it became fairly, you know, apparent that the proportion of work was different, not because, you know, people were lazy, just because of the nature of the roles that you do.
Of course,
and you know, as much as friendship's an important thing, you sort of look at, you know, what's fair and equitable. So
was you more of the front person in that then?
So the 2 guys were, and they you know, one of them's a good guy, one of them's not a good guy, which I'll come on to. One of them was a designer and one of them was a developer. Right. Everything else I did, but bottom line, without the designer and the developer, you haven't got anything. So
sure. It's a team thing.
It's a team thing. So one of the guys who was the designer, he ended up leaving. It was more his choice because he just felt there wasn't really a purpose and a role. There wasn't a sort of an equitable role for him in the business. He's actually gone on and done really well for himself. He runs a very successful games design and game development business in Brighton, and I see him every now and again. And then there was left with me and the developer. The developer, we just had a different. I wanted to grow the business. He just wanted an easy life. Wow. So we decided to split company and the part company. And again, the best way to do that, which we thought at the time, and again I'm looking back on it and going, oh my God, was we went down the pub and we'll both agree a price of the business and we'll flip a coin, and whoever heads or tails, would then buy the other person out, and that meant that it was a fair a fair price. I won the flip. I would have quite happily sold the company there and then. And then the reason I it's not fair me probably because there's always two sides to the story saying he's a bad guy, but we agreed the price. Then he employed a solicitor and wouldn't talk to me, and I had to deal with the solicitor, and it was just made a friendship move out of the realm of a friendship to a toxic. And so I learned a lot through that sort of experience of just try and keep. And also I think I was a different person as well. Then I took things a lot more personally at that time. But the business then, that was 2005, and then we really aggressively grew the business. I think digital really grew, and I decided that we would grow internationally. And I didn't want to go to the States because I think that at the time the States. Fantasy sport games is massive in the States, but I just thought we were too small to get into that market. But where can we go where there's low cultural barriers for entry, or what I thought were low cultural barriers for entry? Same language, love sport. Australia. So we again, and I suppose this is the bit you learn. Not realising you learn it growing up, but you've got that sort of, that gun-ho, I mean, half the stuff I've done, I look back on and gone, if I'd have thought about that, I wouldn't have done it. But
that's then... part of the exciting part of the journey, isn't it? You sort of go, exactly that. The amount of people go, sometimes you just got to do it. You do it now, think about it later, and but you learn and you learn.
I mean, I look back, if I properly looked at it, I went to Australia in 2006. I had a 2-year-old, a 7-month pregnant wife, and 4 suitcases, and we flew over to Sydney. And I had a 6-week rental, and we set the business up there, and we lived out there for just shy of 3 years. So, my wife's not with me anymore, which is possibly part of the stress I put her through in terms of doing that. But it was. We did it, and it was a good. The business grew. We did really well actually, and we turned a profit in our first year. We were running fantasy. We ran it was Rugby World Cup 2007. We worked with the Daily Telegraph, I've forgotten the Herald, which is the Melbourne paper. We did a game for ABC, which is the equivalent of the BBC. So we did really well, and then we went and we grew that business. The next 3 years we grew it a lot in Asia, and we were doing a lot of stuff in Europe. So Silent Manager had an office in Brighton, an office over in Sydney, and we were running games for ESPN, which is a big satellite TV sports network in Asia. We were running the official Cricket World Cup game, the ICC Cricket World Cup game in 2009. We were running games for the Metro newspaper in the UK, for Belgium newspapers, Le Monde in France. It was...
Wow. So how many staff at that point? How many staff was there?
So we had, I think at the height, which was probably too many people because this was in 2010, we had about 14 in Brighton and about 5, 6 in Sydney.
Wow.
But running it, and again, I learned a massive amount about people.
Sure.
And I made some massive mistakes in running that business with people.
In what sense, like just with your leadership skills?
Yeah. I was a boss. I wasn't a leader. I was a boss. I was a, you were employees, and I'm the boss. And I wasn't a, no, occasionally I was probably a mean boss. I was an unreasonable boss. I'm a human being. But I was a benevolent boss as well. So if you were good, then you got got support, and if you weren't good, you didn't get any support. But I think people, which I know we'll talk a bit more about, Sam, and I know you and I have sort of spoken about it sort of off this, but I think people are, and I've learned a lot myself about. I think people, you get 80, 90 short summers on this planet if you're lucky. You know, maybe a few less, maybe a few more. And it's about how you work with people and how you look after people. And I think that's massive in business as well.
100%. I think even more so changed maybe over the with the global pandemic and stuff like that, and you know, people being able to having to communicate better with staff for whatever that looks like, whether it's been people working remotely and that them levels of communication from leaders and filtering down. I think I agree with the narrative that is starting to change and for the right reasons. Like I said, I know we spoke, like I said offline, when we're going into the salon with a thought process of I had to be a boss, exactly like you said, different, like be that type of and not a leader, a boss, because a leader inspires people, doesn't it? Whereas if you're that boss who's you had to be a hard-nosed sort of ruthless person, you haven't got to be like that to be successful. And I think that's the sort of narrative changes. But guys, there's a huge, like, I love the idea of the fact that from a hobby, you've started something that's a hobby that's then turned into.
Sam, I look back on it and I'm like, the ESPN gig was massive for us.
Yeah, sure.
I got on a flight from Sydney up to Kuala Lumpur to do a couple of little meetings up there, and I've been doorstepping the main guy for ESPN. Like they're the BBC, the CNN of Asia. And I happened to be in this hotel room, and I got the email back from the guy, and he said, look, if you can be in the office in Singapore at 9 a.m. tomorrow, and I'm like, right, how do I get down there? And I'm like, you know, I'm turned up. I didn't, you know, I'd never been to Singapore. I've missed my flight back to Australia because this is like, you know, and it was one of those cheap, like, and I wasn't business class. I was like cattle class on the non-refundables.
Yeah.
And it was one of those sort of moments that you put your foot in the door, you got in there, and I had the guy for 20 minutes, and we got. Even when I left the office, I didn't know whether I'd had it, and then we got back. And I got an email to say, look, we're going to give it a go with you, and just stuff like that was, you sort of.
Got to be a buzz though, like that feeling where, like I said, we're delving a little bit later about success and achievements and stuff like that, but little nuggets like that on the route, on the journey, to go, God, wow.
But if you sat there and you did a cost benefit analysis, and I'm going to miss my flight back, and I've got to get down to, I think I had to get a flight to a place called Johor, get a bus over the bridge because there wasn't any flights back. It was just you make it happen. And again, I think, you know, and I hadn't really thought about it until, you know, but I think my childhood is you just had to make it. You know, there wasn't an option of you know, if it wasn't there, you had to work out and improvise a way of making it sort of happen.
And that's part of the being, I guess, the entrepreneurial mindset, which I love. That's why I love doing this, because I find it out a bit more. But it is ultimately that, isn't it? It's there's, you know, there's problems that we face on the journey. It's you either go, if every problem you face, bloody, I can't do that. We're
giving up is not an option. Giving up is not
exactly
an option.
That.
It's simple. So you know, that's just part of your DNA. It's you know, I'm gonna have
head
to.
Down, I've got to grow. You've got to find that. I've got to graft that, or I've got to find a different solution because this one ain't working.
I'll get there, and it'll, you know, it might hurt. It might be. I might have to crawl through mud.
There'll be some scars on the way.
I'll get there. But things like that, you know, you look back on and you go, right, you know, wow, that was, you know, and they didn't know that we were tiny. They thought we were this massive company, you know, and I'd flown in business class on the red eye that night, you know, fresh face, whereas I've just literally like...
Just got off a donkey, come up there.
Quickly, look smart, you know, hi, and...
I love that. So look, that's an amazing thing, but then I want to talk now about, obviously, come to 2014, you've grown it to this stage after 12 years, and then you do the merger with Chroma Group.
Yeah.
What did that sort of look like? And then those next 2 years, because obviously you exited after 2 years. So
was
that the plan when you went on board with Chroma Group? Or?
No, well, at that time, my and I don't mind talking about it because it's part of the journey. But my marriage was breaking down, and I didn't see it coming. And I you know, I was working hard and I was working to focus on delivering for my family, but I wasn't delivering for my family. And I realised that, and I knew that I had to change my work-life balance and my work sort of... So I thought, I can't do this all on my own. And we'd also gone through that, what was the global financial crisis from 2010. And the Australian operation pretty much kept us afloat because we really struggled in Europe. Because it was a lot of marketing expenditure for what we did. So I just knew that I needed to share the pressures of running a business and taking a business forward. The other thing that was combined with that is we were really good at winning business. We built this white label product, which was really good, but our tech was out of date, and without significant investment, we weren't going to be able to bring the tech up to date.
Yeah, sure.
So I got introduced to this business that were a really good tech business called Chroma Group. They built really good tech, but they built it bespoke, and they didn't build white label tech. So their problem was they built really good platforms, really good websites, but they made no money because anybody that's listening to this that runs a digital business or a digital agency will know what I'm talking about. It is a merry-go-round. It's a hamster wheel of, and so I was personally motivated, which possibly wasn't the right solution to what I needed to do. Looking, again, hindsight, and then also I just felt that was an easier route of going. Well, hang on a minute, they've got good tech. We know how to make stuff white label. Let's just put it all together, and that'll make it all work. And we'll both win. And that was really what the motivation was. And what I didn't do, you run your due diligence on the numbers, you run your due diligence on the company reputation, and I think personality is a big part of stuff. And I just there was myself and the Chroma were a bigger company than Silent Manager, and there was 3 directors. So I joined in effect a board where there were 4 directors. We had a chairman that came in. And it became apparent within about 9 months that I sort of use these words carefully, but I don't mind saying it. I think my moral view of how you should run a business was different to that of the main director from Chroma. So I knew I'd made a mistake within 9 months, but I also felt I took 10 of my team into the business from the UK. Some of those team members had worked with me for nearly 10 years. So, and again, I guess there's a moral responsibility that I carry, that I've got their livelihoods and they've trusted me coming into this.
How did they see them? But like when obviously, I guess you sold it to them in a way that this is great for this next step, and they was like all in.
And they did, and I mean they a lot of them have all kept together, and they've gone on to work for another company. They're actually based in Brighton, so it's great. So their career didn't sort of stop there, but it was a car crash. And I could see it as a car crash at director level and at management level, because the financial management of the company was and I'd this is the other massive lesson I'd learned. One was, run your due diligence on the people, because if you just don't get on with people, or you don't see eye to eye on things that you think are fairly basic, it's like it's a relationship.
Of course, and you've got to, I guess, one, have the same vision, share the same ethos, same goals.
And it was dysfunctional. I mean, the bit that sent a massive red flag for me is, and I won't say his name because it's not fair, but the main director took a company loan out to pay for a holiday and hadn't told anybody. So he dipped into the company bank accounts. Now, bearing in mind, we were a very expensive company to run. and I was trying to reduce the cost, and then he's going in and taking $5,000 out to pay for a luxurious sort of holiday. It was just like, whoa, okay. I wouldn't have even thought to have even questioned that or talked about it. But then different people are cut from different moral cloth, and
what would their role was directors in it? Were they hands-on? Were they involved?
Yeah, they were hands-on. One of them. So there were two of them weren't really hands-on, and they were almost sort of on the coattails of the main principal of who was the managing director of what Chroma Group was, and then became. I sat back and became the commercial director, but I lost my voting power. So I was this sort of isolated, and I managed to get the ear of the chairman and said, look, there was a bank statement for a month, 35 pages long, and there was £4.70 at Costa Coffee, £3.80 at some sort of garden centre on a Saturday. So the other directors were using their business bank cards for personal use, and I'm like, really? And then but the main director, being a really can. He's a nice. His moral compass is different to mine. Yeah. He's a bloke you'd meet in a pub, you'd love him. He's great. He's great jazz hands, great front of house, a nightmare in the kitchen. Wow. No idea how to drive the bus, but you put him up front, he is your showman. So we sort of evolved that role without telling him with the chairman. And then sort of coming to it, Sam. So where we got to, 9 months in, I'm like,
this is
oh my God, what have I done? And also, my personal life's imploded. I've lost. I mean, I've literally lost. I don't know if I should say this on a podcast, but within the space of a year, I lost my family, my house, and my business. It was like, right, okay, yeah. So.
Where's your mindset then at that point? Like you go, like looking at that just as a whole. You how do you look at that and go, oh, bloody hell, and then we're going, because obviously then you exit that and go, I'm going to go and start.
But I'm not giving up, and that's my thing with Chrome was like I knew we could make it work, but you just needed to get rid of the nutter at the wheel who didn't know how to drive it. But I'm happy for you to stay at the wheel, but just don't have a real, get one of them pretend wheels and stay at the front of the bus. I'll sit behind you and drive. No one needs to see me, and I'm really happy with that because I don't like the whole.
Be the face of it.
Yeah. You go and do the jazz hands thing, and you're good at it. He was good. He was very, very good at it.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, so we got to a stage where I had the ear of the chairman, and the chairman had negotiated a buyout of the old Chroma directors. It all been agreed, and then. Brilliant. I mean, it's a great story, and I learnt so much in this time period. So this is now August. This is August 15, 2015. Yeah. So the shareholding was being purchased from the 3 original Chroma directors. Yeah. The chairman had built an investment consortium because it was a good business. It was a really sound business, and. Heads of terms have agreed, and there was a overdraft. The bank manager had to sign off something. The bank manager was away on holiday. Yeah. Anyway, bank manager comes back early September. I get a call from the Chroma main guy, and I'm going to give a name, Paul. That's not his real name. Yeah. So Paul rings me up and says, "Johnny, you're sitting down," and I'm like. Yeah, go on then. He said somebody else has come in to buy the shares, and they're offering double the price. Mm-hmm. And Paul had, and all fair play to him, he'd gone off and got another buyer in. And anyway, these guys, there was a boardroom battle for 10 days where there was me and the chairman versus Paul and his buyers, and we lost out. So I had to sell my shares. There was a golden handcuff that I had to stay for 3 months because part of the buyer that Paul had brought in. He'd sold me because it was fantasy sport was a really big, high growth thing at the time. And then I got unceremoniously sacked whilst I was in Australia in November, which was smoke and mirrors just to get me off not having to pay the golden handcuff thing. I got an email overnight, Sam, going, "Come home, do not pass go, do not collect 200 quid." And then I had 5 months where it all went a bit legal, got my money and got out. And in that 5-month period, it was a little bit like, what happened just there? And what do I want to do with myself? And it was nice because I had looking at the time, it was a bit stressful because you've got that anxiety of what's happening with your future, and also reputation and what's happening with the people in the business. And are they going to be okay? And then that 5-month window, that's really where the idea of Freedom Works started from.
Wow, what a journey! I mean, but then, like I say, get just delving into that a little bit, like with that time period. Like, would you had that conversation not happen, or what was it that we're coming to sell it after the 9 months? You've gone, this ain't working out for me. So do you then look at it and go, the opportunity to sell it? You know, this is my get out now. I can take a few. Or was you like deep down? You're like, I've built this business. I love it still. I don't really want to sell it. Was that where you?
Yeah, I needed to fix it. I needed to fix it, and I mean, like everything. I think blokes do stuff like that, don't they? They're like, I'll just fix it. And you know, again, it's, you know, from a personal point of view, I had the other thing going on. I couldn't fix that. That was the first time I'm like, oh my God, I can't fix this. That's happening. But I can fix this. I can fix the business. I know how to make this business work. And I had the ear of the chairman. I had the support of the team. We turned the business around. It was doing well. I had every intention of had Paul not brought in this other buyer, I would have still been there today, and that business would have grown.
Wow.
And the same things that I've learned, I would have applied into that business, but it just wasn't meant to be. And unfortunately for that business, Paul ran it for another year and a half, and he bankrupted it. But he was going to, because he was like I say, you've got different people got different skill sets, but that's why I sort of said earlier. But you know, I couldn't comprehend that. You run a business and you don't understand the concept of making more money than you spend, and honestly, like it's really prevalent. It really is,
Wow. Is there? How do you feel now, like looking back? Obviously, you know, you've got another great business now and you're growing that. But is there any element in your head of resentment around that period, or have you gone?
I'd be lying if there wasn't resentment. But I don't know. I think again that whole period of my life, my attitude to life, holistically changed. I'm a very principled and stubborn individual. So I do hold resentment, you know, but I also think I'm fairly pragmatic about stuff, and it's how you channel that resentment. And I think
gives you the drive to go.
I'm gonna crack on and not let that knock me down.
Amazing, I love that, mate. Well, look, I mean, there's you've chucked in a few challenges there already, to say the least, in your journey. But while we're on that subject, with sort of challenges as a business owners, as we know, it's difficult. You know, we face a lot of them, ups and downs. All of it. Talk to me a little bit about the last couple of years, running a co-working space, global pandemic. How's that been?
Do you know what? It's not been as challenging as the 2010 global financial crisis credit crunch. And I think, the big thing for me is the last 2 years, it's all of us have been affected. It's been all of us. It's been something that you're not alone. It's a consistent, the support, there's a commonality that we've all had you know,
I agree.
the problems. Whereas before, if it's your own individual business, you're alone. And therefore, I think that camaraderie is not the right word, but that bond of a common problem. And look, let's not, you know, make no bones about it. You know, the government, you know, regardless of your political persuasion, I mean, oh my God, you know, I mean, Maggie Thatcher would be turning in her grave if she realised that we'd nationalised the workforce. But that helps. So I think the challenge, honestly, was that March. I'm losing the years. What was it? Was it 2020? Yeah. So March 2020. I think anybody that says that they were calm, cool, and collected is an out-and-out liar. I think we were all rabbits in headlights. We were like, what? You know.
Because we don't, no matter how much you plan and business plan and structure for the future and everything, no one probably had the what would I do when the global pandemic comes? I've got that all sorted. That's in Appendix B.
Global pandemic? What's that? What's that Jobs fella on about? What's that? You know, and I, do you know what? I was like, oh, this is 3 months, right? You know, we'll smash this out in 3 months, and then look, it's a bit of pain. And then we'll crack on with it. So, like, you know, everything that I thought, it never happened. So, you know, but and again, all the experts were right. And again, that's part of, you know, your learning curve is that sometimes you need to listen to people. But no, so I think the challenges were, you've run marathons, Sam, right? For me, like, your training runs are hard. Like those last 2-3 bleed runs when you're running 19, 21 miles, they are harder than running the marathon, because the marathon, you're with loads of people doing the same thing. So you've got that commonality of everything you're going through. You've got the support of everybody handing you the drinks and the
jelly babies,
the bar, all that stuff. You've got the crowd lifting you, that's like that bringing you along. So by the time you get to do the marathon, it's like, actually, this isn't. It doesn't feel as much of a challenge as that, you know, that 19-mile run on your own in the peeing down rain, you know, on that undercliff, you know, where, you know, you're running past these people not realising that you're in utter pain and demoralised.
He's just got out for his morning 5K.
Yeah.
16 miles.
But I just think that's that was the bit with the challenge. It wasn't. It was the unknown was the biggest challenge, and I think the team, the way that my team reacted, and we're a very different team today. There was a meltdown, but I think that was. I think people didn't. People didn't know how it was going to impact on them. I mean, looking back on it, we were all told that we were going to catch this thing, and if we caught it, we were going to die. And there was a lot of anxiety and a lot of. But what became abundantly clear within a month to 2 months is that and I think if that government support hadn't have hit so quickly, and the furlough scheme, we got nothing for a year. When did we got some ARG money in the January 21? So actually, just under a year, we got nothing. But if we hadn't have had that furlough money, we'd have popped.
Yeah. Wow. Like you said, I think looking at it and what's come out of it the last couple of years, like you said, the fact that it did get, certainly from my point of view, I looked at it, it did seem like we was all wanting to get it, was that businesses, you know, I've spoke about it openly. I'm a huge fan of the Sussex business community as a whole. I've embraced it and embraced me and supported me in different ventures, whatever that looks like. But I just think people really, become a little bit more open and honest about where they are. Like, because who was going, there was the odd one or two, but generally people weren't going on when you speak to them online or whatever that looked like. Oh smashing it at a minute. It was more like, look, we're all struggling. This is happening. But people, that then bonds people, brings people together.
Yeah, it did massively bonded people. I mean, we within, when was it? Yeah, so March, April, and Jim Cunliffe
Yeah, yeah,
from like we were in the Hove workspace, and we're like, obviously all the business had just dropped, nobody's doing, and it was like, right, what can we do? And there was 2 or 3 people. Jim was key to this.
Yeah.
Said, why don't Rocking Horse had lost all, and I know obviously that's close to your heart as well, Sam.
Yeah.
They'd lost all their revenue stream come through. So it's like, well, what can we do? And there was a guy called Dave Ramirez who runs a fulfillment business. There was Janella, who was on furlough from Global. There was Shake It Up Creative, who were a marketing business out of Worthing. The Digibubble, who were an SEO guys up in, and we all got together and we came up with the that was when the NHS there was the rainbows going up in the windows, and you could put your child's rainbow on a T-shirt and pay for that T-shirt £25. All done by 7 different companies who collaborated, who all worked together. Put that in, and that would never have happened. It wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have happened outside. And it was an energy that was just, we felt, people needed to do stuff. We got, there was Jack the Lad did a video on it. We had I think a couple of the rugby players. There's like Marcus Smith, the Brighton lad, and Joe Marler, who's out Lewis Way, did some videos on it. And there was a real sort of coming together. But that togetherness for me, I think, and with that, the Sussex business community really did, support each other and look after each other.
I completely agree. I think it's we've come through, and hopefully, I like to think that we've come through it and we've come out the other end stronger. And just from us working together, and we've Brad at Network My Club, collaborations happening around. People actually coming together and taking that from we work together in to get through the pandemic, to go, look, if we do work together, we can progress and all succeed in a better way, and it's a better community.
Well, collaboration was a buzzword, wasn't it? It was collaboration. And it was like, but people actually, there was always a little bit of like, but it's like, well, we were. I think a lot of way that we work. A lot of the way the human mind worked was challenged over that 2 years, wasn't it? I mean, it was, and when somebody offers you something, you're always a little bit like guarded, like, okay, what's the agenda here? That dropped because we
just want to survive.
And I think a bit of that sort of carried on as well. And I know you and I have spoken about this offline. My conversations with networking groups, with membership organisations, is very different now with the openness than it was, and everybody wants to succeed, and everybody wants to help each other succeed, and that togetherness is really strong. Yeah,
I agree. Well, that leads us on nicely, actually, talking about, because we've highlighted a few challenges and stuff, but I just wanted to talk obviously about sort of success over this 20-year period. Like we alluded to it a little bit with the ESPN stuff. But talk to me about, if you look back over your journey so far, what would you put as your greatest achievement or success, and just define what sort of success looks like to you.
I had a look at that question. I thought, God, how do I answer that? I know this. Hopefully, this doesn't sound sort of arrogant or dismissive. I don't think I've reached my greatest success yet, and I don't think. I don't think it's happened. And I know what drives me is the fear of failure. So whether that's a good or a bad thing, it sort of probably gives you a bit of a half glass full type sort of attitude to success. I mean, I've got an aspiration of what we want to do with Freedom Works. I've got a fantastic team, and I want, part of probably sort of talking and thinking at the same time, but part of that success, without sounding cheesy, is to see other people succeed as well.
Sure.
But I mean, I
it's a great answer actually to look at, because I actually, because if someone was to ask me, people ever on this, and I sort of look at it and go, I actually feel very similar to that. I look back at my 13 years of running a business, and I don't think I've had, to be honest, loads of little wins here and there, like you said with ESPN, like little bits that I've done that, or that was great, but not certainly, I feel still a little bit like I'm at the beginning of my journey to get to what that success. But then your definition is set. Have you got a vision in your head of what maybe that looks like for the future? Is it financially successful?
No.
Is it more like what would it? Is it that, like you
said,
do you want the co-working space on the moon? Is that
no? Well, no, the co-working space on the moon, and it's good that you got that. So it's brilliant. But the point of that is that there's no limits to what we can achieve. And the limit is what we set it to be. So why not be the first co-working space on the moon? And Elon Musk, when he was sort of, playing, in his backyard, probably said, I want to be the first bloke to fly a commercial jet to the moon. And, but I don't know. So the definition, I don't know what the definition is. For me, I put personally, I mean, I'm not money driven. I'm not financially driven. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I want to be able to go and do stuff. And I don't want money to block me. Not having money blocking me doing stuff, but I'm not interested in staying in a £800 a night room and flying first class all around the world. That doesn't really float my boat, really. Sure. But we talk about Freedom Works as a bus, and I want the bus to get as far as it can with as many people on the bus, so that it helps realise and fulfil their personal, because again, that's part of my, new, way of looking at things. Work isn't. It's not work is there, and home is there, which is where I was at. It's sure. Actually work has an impact on that, and you need it to make it. If you're gonna have, you're gonna make the most of those summers on this planet. You need to enjoy what you're doing and look back on it and go, actually, at least I had a go.
Brilliant.
Sorry, that's a bit of a wishy-washy answer. No,
it's not at all. I think it's absolutely bang on, and I think I love it. I love the bus analogy as well. With the team, and this is again just leads us on nicely to the next one about the team and people. About you mentioned in the conversation just now about through the pandemic and stuff, and the team and what that sort of looks like, and then your leadership. But I've obviously, because we've worked together a little bit over the last couple of months, we've obviously done an event together, got to work with some of the team, and talk to me about the culture that you've sort of created from your learnings in the first business that you've taken in from a different. It sounds like obviously a very different leadership style, but you're very much like this family sort of environment within Freedom Works that you're really at the heart of it. You're there, and all the team are there with you and on that journey and believing that. Talk to me about it.
Well, it's the electric shock treatment. No.
That does work, does it?
I'll
make a note.
The hypnosis, it's like... my learning in like the sort of three businesses, I was a boss, as we sort of talked about, and I think if you disempower people, that's what I've learned, is that you don't get the best out of people. And disempowering is like, here's a list, go and do that list. And it's like, well, actually, I want people to make their own list and create the list. And obviously, So the culture of a team hasn't been defined by me. It's been defined by the team. So part of my mentality coming into Freedom Works, and again, it's part of a life sort of mentality, is that I just want us to have fun doing this. And part of that is to give people that ability to make decisions, to make mistakes. And I think that's a really important thing that I've learned, probably too late in my life, is that it's not, and it's the same as like bringing up kids. You want your kid to fall over and scrape their knee, because they'll know that actually running down a hill at full pelt isn't a good idea. It's that type of sort of so I think it's enabling a culture where people can make decisions without the fear of reprisal or without the fear of and it's funny actually, because we have people that have joined the team that they're really rigid and they're really scared, or they're really sort of quite sort of defensive about stuff. And it's like, no, cool. It's sort of relaxed. And I think I've been very, very lucky, very, very lucky that I've had some amazing people that have come on the bus, that have joined the business. So the first thing that, and I advocate this to any business owner, is enable, ultimately, make them feel part of the business. So we've got an EMI scheme, which is a shareholding scheme. So core team members get an option into the business. So it's not just they're working for the business. So Freedom Works, the core people in the business will get a shareholding in the business. It's their business, and I don't like the words your business. It's our business, and it's so there's a tangible sort of mentality there. We also set out we did a team alliance, which we constructed over a year when we did some work with one of our members, actually, who does sort of team management and team guidance, who really helped us. And that we came up with what are the words? So respect, accountability, positivity. And that helped sort of, and it was a little bit, going into those sessions was like going into an AA meeting, especially as a boss. Not the boss, but as the owner of the company, because you sometimes have to sit there and hear stuff that you didn't really want to hear,
But that transparency, I guess, and that creating that space for them to be honest and not just tell you what you want to hear, but be able to say what they really feel, helps to then mould and create that.
It did, and then that was the bit where the pendulum actually, and it wasn't anybody's, it was just the pandemic happened at that time, and that's when I had the meltdown, because like that openness was just like, I can't do this, I don't want to do this, and I'm like, I'm like, I've got my house on the line here. This is me now getting into my selfish mode, the rabbit in the headlights. I've got my house on the line here. We've got stuff that we need to do, but you've got to take into people's, how they feel and what they're sort of doing. So I think, that also was part of galvanising that and saying we do run it like and I care about everybody that comes into the business, and I want it to work for them, and if that means they get off the bus after one stop because we're not the right environment for them, that's equally as important as staying on, because I just
But that's how you create a strong culture, isn't it? Because people will come in and it not be the right fit for them, and that's fine.
Cool.
Like, that's it. This is just not right for you. You go on. But then the people that do come on the bus and do want to stay on it buy into that, and then you've just got that stronger workforce. Everyone, because I love the idea of, like you say, people actually having shares and becoming part of the because one thing I struggled with initially, like, and I always go back to saying, that's probably one of my biggest learnings that failed. It was that sort of like they're never gonna see it like it's their and they still potentially to a degree won't, even with that situation, because they haven't got their house on the line, and maybe they're not at that risk. They could go and get another job, but just by being open and honest and getting that transparency and making them feel more part of it, and that their views and ideas are valued as much as everyone else's, and creating that space. That's why I find it so like the culture issue, like, because ultimately strong, successful companies have got that strong culture, and that's
and that's the thing for me. The two, and we talked about this offline, but for me, it's people and cash flow. Those are the two things that will, enable a business to succeed, but equally can be the downfall of a business. And the people element for me was massive, and finding the right people, engaging the right people, giving them the freedom to make decisions. I mean, don't get me wrong, you've got to have process, you've got to have a chain of command, you've got to, it can't be a complete sort of free for all, because you I guess there are probably systems that do work, but I don't get that system. So. No. But it's that ability that you can empower people to make decisions and improve. And what I'm also a big advocate and believer in is, and going back to that, well, I will call them out. Michael Page was the recruitment consultancy that said, no, you tick all the boxes, but you sound a bit too common for us. So it's like, right, okay, screw you.
If ever I go out of business, I won't be going.
No. But anyway, but I think you've got so many young people, and I think the kickstart was the right idea, badly executed. But you've got this energy in young people, and if you can engage them and you can give them that ability to learn, but also that ability to give, because they've got ideas and they've got thought process and they've got energy, they can go on. I mean, we've got within our team, Sam. I mean, I've used apprentices since the silent manager days, and I would say probably I've seen between 7 and 10 of those people go on to really succeed in business. I've got 3 members of the team at the moment who have gone through or currently in the apprenticeship scheme that I know, having worked in industry for best part of 25, 30 odd years, will be a success. But they wouldn't if they went to go and work in a large corporate with a rigid company culture and structure, and they just
opportunity.
They get squashed.
Yeah, wouldn't have the opportunity. I guess that's what you're creating there by having that sort of.
Well, we're creating it, not they're creating their own. That's my whole.
Yeah,
my whole thing is that this is your. If we don't perform, we don't deliver, and if we don't deliver, then it's a bit boring because the bus isn't going to go very far. The moon analogy is like, look. That bus only moves as fast as the slowest member of the bus enables us to move. So we know what we want to do. There's a bus here, and we want to get onto the moon. And it is like summiting Everest. We're looking at chicken steps to get ourselves sort of up there. But as long as you're clear with people, and I think that's the other part is I've always been probably too open with the business. So if we've got no money, I'll tell them we've got no money. If we've got targets that we've got to deliver, if I failed on investment, which I have massively failed on investment, I let them know about it. If I've made a mistake, so I think that there is an argument of sometimes there's a need to know basis with your team members, but I also think you plug them in. They're grown ups, even if they're a 20-year-old. 20-year-old sort of,
because then they feel, again, it's back to feeling part, like, because I was always, again, conscious, like, can't share that, we're strong, I haven't got any money. If we don't make X amount of sale, we don't do X amount of hair, whatever that looks like, there's no money. You're not going to get paid at it. Where's that money? It's just not going to magic itself out. You've got to. And I always worried about, I can't share that with them. That can't happen. But I've sort of changed a little bit more, and I think it's that. Probably, I mean, some people maybe disagree with it, but I think it's okay to actually be honest and so, because they feel part. Like if they don't, you can set targets, KPIs, and stuff like that. But if you go and fundamentally, how does it impact?
We've got to
do this. If we don't, then
And I think that's experience though, Sam, isn't it? You've sort of like, and I was exactly the same. It's like, well, it's a need to know. You turn up to do this job, and that's it. But it's also getting the buy-in, and you can quite easily identify those that like they're soaking it all up. And what's been amazing with the amazing team, and it is, and I'm not saying this because some of them might be listening to this later, it's the best team I've ever worked with, and it's part of that because of the dynamic of the people that you've got that come in, and you get a couple of people that help, and I probably not the right thing to say, but I think we're a home for people that have got an amazing ability but aren't given a chance anywhere.
Love that. Mate, brilliant. Look, you've certainly, like I say, just from my dealings over the last sort of couple of months, and they've all been a pleasure to work with, and long may that sort of continue. So you've obviously, like what you are doing, it's working. There seems such a strong culture from the people I've met, just on a personal thing. So, mate, it's just amazing.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sam.
I want to. We delved in just before we've sort of come up to the last couple of questions. I want to obviously I talk about work-life balance again. That and culture are two probably the key ones, mainly for my own learnings, because it's something I struggle with a lot with the whole work-life balance thing. You obviously alluded to, and I appreciate you obviously openness and honesty about marriage breaking down and stuff like that. But how did that impact you now regarding work-life balance, and what's your relationship like with that? Do you have a work-life balance now?
Massive. And I'm a big again, sort of one of those recovering alcoholics that I tell anybody that's working too hard, Sam, just you've got don't lose sight on what you're doing it for. And it's so easy to do it. It's not something that you're not a bad person getting off it, but it's and I I'm an evangelist about it. You've got to make sure that you're at work, and what we do is what's the end output? It's about being happy. It's about looking after those that you care about you. It's about making sure that they're safe. It's about creating their futures. It's about helping support them. And so that was part of my nasal gaving, and that was part of what the idea behind Freedom Works was, because I did that commute up to London, and then I decided I wasn't going to, because I was going to have a kid. I then set up my own business, which then you realise you're working silly hours, and I'm working all over the place. But I'm just like, why can't I work where I live? And if I can work where I live, why can't I have more time with my family? Why can't I spend more time with my kids? Why can't I come home and tuck my kids into bed and read them a bedtime story? Why can't I go and walk them to school once a week? And so that part of my life, if that wouldn't have happened, Freedom Works, I don't think would have even been an idea for me. And our first strapline was keeping homegrown talent at home, and it was all about making sure that I could create now. And I actually think the pandemic has absolutely fast-tracked that because I've got a mate of mine he's a stalwart commuter that goes up to London on the Portslade platform 6:15 every morning, and he discovered mackerel fishing during the lockdown, and he discovered his kids during lockdown, and he's like, I'm never doing that 5 days a week ever again, and I'm like, God, if you're changed, then that and that's what I knew that but I think going back to the work-life balance for me, and I've got two sons that are now 14 and 17, and they are my world, and I had them 50% of the time. So single dad, running a business, managing 2 kids as they were growing up. So it forces you a little bit to do it. So, but I'm a big believer that. And again, having gone through it, so like at the weekend, I won't respond to any emails. I won't take any business calls unless it's like an emergency. And I'm really disciplined about that. And when I'm home, I'm home, and when I'm at work, I'm at work, and I give everything when I'm at work. But when I'm at home, I'm not checking my phone every 5 minutes or 10 minutes for the email to come in. And I'm looking at you because I know we all do it. And even when I lived when we had the business in Australia, I couldn't sleep at night because I'd be like, I better just check the emails. And I mean, we all do it as business. You do because it's your baby, and it's like, well, no. And that's part of the empowerment element as well, because this isn't just my baby; it's everybody else's baby, and that's part of, again, there's a degree of taking. The world still spins, in 100 years' time, who cares?
Yeah, mate, you know what? For me, I know you're talking to it, and as I'm listening, I know all the things that you're highlighting that I'm guilty of doing, and I'm struggling with it, and it's on a personal level. I was conscious of it when I was at the stand. I'm this really driven, ambitious person, and yet I've got an amazing family,
but it also creeps up as well, Sam. It doesn't. You don't set out and go, I'm going to work 12, 14-hour days.
No.
But it creeps up, and you don't realise it creeps up. And I sound like I'm a counselling session, but I haven't been out the other end. I just go, those kids are never going to be, 6 again, 7 again, 8 again, 10 again, and it's so for me, I like going on holiday. you know,
And can you switch off? So you go on holiday.
Yeah.
Do you completely switch off? And you?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'd be lying if I said I completely switch off. But you know, like in the height of the pandemic, so back end of 2020, I took the kids backpacking around Mexico. So we had no Wi-Fi, no phones. There was like 2 or 3 days. And I'd be lying if I wasn't slightly worried about, you know, what's going on. But again, it's about trust. That's a lot of it. It's about also trust, letting go a bit, and I think it's as much for a business owner to sort of just, do you know what? It's the world's still going to spin, and I think that if anything, the pandemic should reinforce that to all of us because, you know, the world did stop. And we're still here, aren't we?
Yeah.
You know, so but I'm very disciplined. Like home life is my home life, and you know, I want to make sure that.
Mate, I'm certainly listen. Thank you, because I am like personally, that's what I'm on a journey to try and get to, and I'm mindful of it. So I think that's a key, and I'm looking at our definitely.
And I'm, you know, Sam, you know, look, where we've been in the last year, we've grown massively. So I'm finding myself getting sucked into that. But I'm now having gone through it. I'm like, right, you know, and look, I went home. Was it last week or the week before? And I wasn't a nice person when I got home because I'd stressful at work. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm repeating the same thing that I did before. And this wasn't why I set the business up. So it's just we're not. You just get. I guess it's a lonely job running your own business, isn't it? And you sometimes lose sight of the fact why you're doing it, and you've got to take that step out of the moment and go, look, it's cool.
It's all right. Yeah. Mate, it's great advice. But brilliant. And I'm sure there's loads of people listening that, you know, probably at different ends of the spectrum to me and you probably work hard at longer hours than what I do and don't see their family at all, which I'm somewhere maybe in there, and there's other people who maybe too relaxed or whatever that looks like, but the advice is I sure will resonate with lots, so no, mate, it's brilliant. Well, look, we're coming up to the last couple of bits, so I just want to tell me, what does the future hold for Jon Trigg?
Brighton Hove Albion winning the Premier League now. Well, you never know. Shoot for the moon. Shoot for the moon.
Why not?
What I would like to do, whether the future is kind enough to deliver this, but what I'd love to do is I'd love to get to a stage in my life where I'm not worrying about having to earn money, and I can donate my time for good causes. And there's a couple of things I'm quite passionate about, and I'd like to help, and I'd like to put my skill set and knowledge base and energy into that without, So that's probably the answer there.
Love that. Okay, and then we're going to finish. So we've got what one piece of advice would you give your younger self before starting out on your business journey?
I should have done my homework on this, so because you did send me the question through. The piece of advice I'd give myself would be, just remember what you're doing it all for.
Yeah, brilliant. And look, we're going to final question. We're going to wrap up with, as I sort of mentioned. So I've stole this from the Diver CEO because he's an inspiration to me. And one of the reasons I started the podcast, he does this, and this is a great little thing. So basically, I've got my previous guest to write a question down for you, and I'll ask you to do the same for my next one. This question from my previous guest was, what's the worst piece of business advice you've ever been given, and why?
Worst piece of business advice I've ever been given? Merge with Chroma Group. I think I've covered the answer.
I was going to say, you don't even need... fair play.
Honestly, that was probably it. I mean, I guess practical...
fair, good answer. Like you said, we probably covered that why, but listen, Jon, it's been such a pleasure getting to know you over the last few months, man, and
Yeah,
excited
likewise, Sam.
obviously about our partnership. But and I know when we sort of spoke offline, you alluded to your sort of journey, and as soon as you did, I was like, oh, mate, I said to you straight away, look, got to get on the podcast, and what a brilliant episode it's going to be, and I can't wait to share it with everyone. So listen, thanks so much for your time, and mate, keep reaching for the moon. And
Brilliant.
I hope to come up there and work with you.
Thanks, Sam. Yeah, no, really good. Cheers.
Awesome. Cheers.